Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of SAMA, Seattle Circuit Music and Art. I am Derek Mazzoni, and thank you for being here. We are still going through some very interesting times, obviously, throughout the United States and, of course, throughout the world. And a lot of the music that I have been focusing on has a history of being able to help people through difficult times. It has an intrinsic quality of transcendence, growth, and also, just kind of the ability to go like, okay, this is hard, but we're gonna get through this. I've been a huge fan of both klezmer and Yiddish music, and it's been part of the music of how I grew up, and the beginning of like the late 80s and 90s, there was a pretty significant klezmer revival, and I really fell for that scene and that sound. And one of the main bands of that scene was the Klezmatics. So tonight we have a very special sama. We have the Sklamberg Lorin Judelman trio. Now, this is featuring one of the leading voices of the klezmer revival, Lorin Sklamberg, and darling of the international Yiddish scene, Sasha Lurje. They joined together on this new transatlantic collaboration, perform Yiddish music ranging from old folk ballads to cantorial masterpieces, from Chassidic chants to Yiddish resistance songs, as well as old pop and theater songs. They're joined by fiddler Craig Judelman, who's from originally from Seattle, now lives in Berlin, whose background with old time folk music, Yiddish and otherwise, provides the perfect counterpoint, along with Mrs. Glamberg's accordion, for these two incredible voices. I've heard them a few times, and I'm honored to have them on Sama tonight, playing songs that are going to help us get through this. Hey, Lauren. Hey, Craig and Sasha.
Hey,
Pretty,
How's
Hello.
it how's it going?
pretty good. Pretty
Awesome.
early in the
This is
morning here.
this is our first uh, experience going to directly to Europe. We are in Kreuzberg, Berlin, and we're also in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And it's an honor, and it's great to have you here. So, a couple of questions. We've been talking quite a bit about this, and I love your music. I love the scene, and I love how there's so much in the can I say this, the Yiddish musical canon, that is just, I feel, perfect for what the world is going through right now. And if you could speak to that a little bit, because you guys have been doing this for a long time, and it feels like, you don't run out of music, you don't run out of material, and it also, there's new stuff that it seems like you guys are also exploring a little bit here and there. So speak to that if you can a little bit.
well, musically, it's my home. So, um, you know, I turn to it, because it's, and not that it's the only thing I know, but because it feels like it's mine. And, one of the reasons that I've been, sort of focused on this music, for all of these years is because it feels like, Hamish and something that really speaks from me. So especially in times like this, um, to be able, many people in the Yiddish musical world have sort of rallied together in a remarkable way. There's a singers forum that's online. Craig can tell you about the thing that's going on with instrumentalists, particularly with fiddlers. And I think that we've all been, you know, sort of grasping onto this music that we love, and as a thing that can give us some, comfort and joy.
It's like a touchstone
Yeah.
to I don't like sometimes like the worry rock, or you walk in and it's like, I'm here and I'm going to be able to get through this. And I find in many ways, you're lucky because you have this, and especially in this country right now, this is the first time that this has happened to people, and we have been disassociated from our past in many ways. from a indigenous perspective, we're disassociated from the spirit. And it feels like right now it's an interesting opportunity where these learnings, shall we say, this heritage can be offered, it can be shared, because people are here right now. They're like, what you described with Craig, with this fiddlers forum. People are getting together, people are sharing their stuff because people want to have that sense of community. And it feels right now there's an interesting opportunity to be able to share that beyond just the usual circles where people hang. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, yeah, that's been a big thing, is like, not only are we all, at home or whatever, like everybody's at home. So we're able to do these events where we're, having conversations with all of the experts that even like, at the best workshops and festivals, like we can't get everybody together, but now we can have an event and just get all of the perspectives and share it live, or make videos and things, so that it's content that's created for people to use in the future, and exactly not just keep it in the inner circle, but really give it out to the people.
Perfect. How did you guys meet?
We met
all of you.
All of us. Do you want to know how we met?
Yes. Tell us that story.
She was actually playing with Lorin at a festival in Toronto called Ashkenaz, a wonderful festival up there. And I was there playing with the guy, Mark Rubin, who you might know from his work with the Bad Livers, as well as a bunch of other bands. Because I was living in New Orleans at the time, whatever. So yeah, so we ended up there and we all met. I think I had sort of met Lorin before, because I used to live in New York and as part of the Klezmer scene there, but I was more in the old time scene in those days. And
did you mingle?
We mingled, yeah, a little bit.
Hey, he doesn't mean it that way, Craig.
No, maybe I do. Maybe I do.
We had beverages.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a romantic date in Rochester, New York.
Yeah,
I love it. I love, but it's one thing to kind of like get together, but it's another thing to actually go like, okay, we're going to actually do this now and form an ensemble, and we're going to tour, and you guys will have a record that just came out that you recorded in Berlin. I mean, there's this fascinating story of how you've been able to rise this music up, which was lost for a long time, and now it feels like it's back here again. We've had records of Yiddish music that have been nominated for Grammys, and there's I've spent time in Germany and in Poland and other places, and there's like a resurgence in this. People are looking for this, and now we have a pandemic where the intention of this music to help, it's more timely than ever. And I want to talk more about this, but let's go into a song, and then everybody out there can actually see, and then we can go specifically about that. So let's hear the first song on Sama, Seattle Circuit Music and Art. Thank you.
Es all die Balle kreisen, es all die Balle kreisen. Puero will mit die Balle kreisen, a Balle will nicht fahren, Balle will nicht fahren. Schickt der Hara hinterlehn, hinterlehn, Valdarein, soll das Feuer beißen, soll das Feuer beißen. Hinterlehn will nicht das Feuer beißen, der Feuer will nicht die Barrelche reißen, Barrelche will nicht fahren, Barrelche will nicht fahren. Valdarein, soll das Hinterle schmeißen, soll das Hinterle schmeißen. Steckele will nicht das Hinterle schmeißen, Hinterle will nicht das Feuer beißen, Feuer will nicht die Barrelche reißen, Barrelche will nicht fahren, alleine soll das Feuer löschen, soll das Feuer löschen. Wasser will das Feuer löschen, Feuer will schon das Steckele brennen, Steckele will schon das Hinterle schmeißen, Hinterle will schon das Feuer weißen, Feuer will schon die Barre reißen, Barre will schon fahren, Barre will schon fahren.
All right, that was beautiful. The Sklamberg Lorin Judelman Trio. That was recorded live in UCLA before, at a different time in a different world where people
Like
could do
right before.
The day before they
Right
declared
before.
the state of emergency.
Your
in California.
timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. That really is gorgeous, and I love the fact that you had lyrics up before. And tell us a little bit about those two songs, please.
Oh, so the first one, Shik Der Har, it's a variant of a song that's sung at Passover, which is known as Chad Gadya, and it's one of those sort of cumulative songs. In this case, it can be kind of seen as the circle of violence that exists in our world. So first, like in the more familiar version of this song, someone goes out is instructed to go out and do something in the field, and then after that person is sent a dog, usually to bite the person who's going to do this thing. In this particular version, it's to pick pears, and the pears, nobody wants to do what they're assigned to do. So in the first time until the very end of the song, and this is a shortened version, it's only 5 verses. Usually they go quite a long time, and they involve a lot more characters. In this one, so they send the dog to bite the guy who's going to pick the pears. Then they send the stick to hit the dog. Then they send the fire to burn the stick, and then they send the water to put out the fire. The water to put out the fire that's going to burn the stick. That's going to, yeah. So that's the song, and
That's a perfect song for what we're going through right now.
yeah, it kind of is.
It really is. It's just, this is it. This is the magic. Please.
And the song was brought into more contemporary awareness because a friend of the Klezmatics, a great friend of a lot of people, Chava Alberstein, who a singer-songwriter in Israel, wrote a popular version of the song where she basically sings it, and then she inserts a comment about how this circle of violence needs to end, and she sees this song and she looks around and she doesn't recognize who we've become. So the song, her version of the song, was very controversial, and so when we sing this song, I kind of think about that aspect of it, and about how it really, in a way, is a song about, we don't want this violence, to this war that's keeps regenerating itself to be going on.
So it was like a song about, this feels very, I'm pivoting everything on the times that
Yeah.
we're going through right now, but it feels like that's a perfect song and a perfect intention, because on many levels everybody wants things to not so much go back to where they were, but to evolve through this to something that won't allow that cycle to happen again and again.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the reasons, at least, for me, that some of these songs that I've been singing for years, that, I can't stop, they're great songs, but unfortunately, I can't stop singing them because these things keep regenerating themselves, and so the songs become, renewed in their intention. So this is sort of one of their songs, one of those songs. Yeah. So that's Schick der Haar. That was the
Okay.
first song.
And that other song, Sasha, please, and Craig, if you could speak to that.
So it has a very different sentiment, and it comes from a very different place. It's called Ich bin geheim, I long for my home, and it comes from the repertoire of a fantastic singer, Goldie Milovsky, who comes from a family of a very important cantor, like what do you call that? The Jewish
Yeah,
Prayer
liturgy
leader,
we know
prayer
prayer. Yeah.
leader, which is a complex, interesting, deep musical tradition as well as a sacred tradition. But in a lot of traditional Judaism, female voice has certain prohibitions against it. Not even prohibition.
Well,
Men are not allowed to listen to women sing.
if it's not their
Mhm.
wife,
It's
starting in the 1700s or something.
right. So in the first half of the 20th century, there was this movement by these women that wanted to do this and wanted to perform this material. Of course, they were not allowed to lead services in the synagogues at the time, but they perfected this kind of singing, and this whole movement was called chazantes, like the female version of the word chazan, which is a cantor. And she performed actually a lot also with her father, because he was so great that people were closing their eyes to the fact that he's singing with his grown-up daughters and allowing them to sing with him. And this is a song that really just goes through a memory of Shabbos, which is a holiday that comes every week for Jews. Shabbat, Shabbos,
The Sabbath.
and it basically follows every part of it. First, the Friday night meal and the prayer from a father on Friday night, and during Saturday, during the day, how in the synagogue at the grandfather who is the Hazen would pray with such a feeling, and at night when the Shabbos is leaving, the mother would say this beautiful prayer, already not in the holy language, not in Loshen Kodesh, but in Yiddish, God von Avrom, which is a very like a female prayer. So in a way, it has a connection to rebuilding the world and connecting to how things used to be, and longing for home, but also at the same time it has this empowerment of being a female singing this kind of stuff that like at that time women were not quite allowed to.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And once again, perfectly and timely, because as we all go through these transitions, and we want to hold on to our traditions, and in many ways, and from different cultures. But there's also the reality of the times that we're in, and I think it's vital to hear these voices and to hear these perspectives. And this leads me to one more question before we go to the next song. If you look at the history of the Jewish people, and specifically the Yiddish language and culture, that family tree was dramatically pruned throughout history. With the pogroms, and then of course the Nazis, um, and then there's the movement, and then suddenly you go to a place like America or other cultures where it's so hard to hold on to that kind of tradition, because it's like everybody speaks a particular language. You've got all of these dietary restrictions. Everything's around you. You're not in a village anymore. In Belarus, you're in a whole other place. And but the language, and I'm leaning on that because there's so many amazing words in Yiddish that have continued to grow and have become part of the nomenclature throughout. What is it about that allowed that culture and language to hold on? And even now, Lauren and I have had this conversation where it's like it's growing. I'm in Eastern Europe and I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it, it's being championed. People want to be attached to it some way and somehow. What is it about that, from your experience, that has allowed that to happen, whereas other cultures and other languages, are going extinct or are close to being extinct? That's
I
an
think
easy
there's a
subject
lot
for
of
you.
interesting probably answers. I'll try and jump in with a short one.
Okay.
Which is I mean, first of all, I think for a lot of modern Jews, like as far as what's happening right now, Jews and non-Jews, it's a way of connecting to Jewish, to European, Eastern European Jewish culture that doesn't have anything to do with Israel. And if it does have something to do with politics, it's mostly to labor struggles and leftist politics.
Yeah.
So I think it's like it's a bit of a safer space. It's also not really, it's very much related to all the religious stuff, but it's really not, as Sasha said, the religious language. It's the everyday language. It's the home language. It's often thought of as a women's language, even.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because like you would do business with other people, maybe outside of the community, and whatever the local language is, and like it's more like the thing you do at home. And when you're studying, then you use Hebrew or Aramaic, even. But I think also there's a great quote from Max Weinreich, who says that a language is a dialect with, or how does it go?
A dialect
is a language without an
army.
That's kind of backwards, right? A language is a dialect with a navy, with an army.
Yes, language is a dialect with a navy and an army.
Right, something like that.
Okay.
So, but I think my point is kind of like Yiddish never had that. It was always like a language of struggle and of people being displaced or dealing with things. And so, I don't know, in a way, like I think it never, like it's always had that appeal of being sort of something that's a tool of struggle or a part of a struggle.
So it's a robust, it in it of itself is the ability to stand up and fight for its existence.
Yeah, like in the expressions.
Got
and the words.
It's a very it has a representation of resilience built into its history.
It's kind of the underdog language.
Yeah. Well, you said one thing, Derek. You said that everything we say, everything like we're feeling right now, it's like there is an important part of we are here. And we are here has been the motto of resistance movements, Yiddish Jewish resistance movements. And that's part of it, just like part of like ideas of presence and ideas of resilience, and no matter what, we're here.
Yeah. And now it's time to learn, and now it's time to share. This is perfect. I am here. This is Sama, Seattle Sacred Music and Art, if you're just joining us for the first time. And I'm here right now with the Sklamberg Lorin Judelman Trio. And thank you so much. Let's go to another song. We're going to talk for a long time. This is going to be great. Sama, with presentation partnership with our dear friends, Seattle Theater Group.
Zeit. Wer spielt sich mit die Kinder und einem zu sich? Wer spielt sich mit die Kinder und einem zu sich? Gott spielt sich mit die Kinder und nimmt zu sich. Gott spielt sich mit die Kinder und nimmt zu sich. Die kleine Kinder singen in Himmel allemal. Die kleine Kinder singen in Himmel allemal. Die kleine Kinder singen in Himmel allemal. Die kleine Kinder singen in Himmel
That's beautiful. I love that track. I am here with Lorin Sklamberg. I am here with Craig Judelman. I'm here with Sasha Lurje, the Sklamberg Lurje Judelman Trio. They have a brand new Facebook page up. There's a new band, and so go check it out. It's available. It's
Just
near.
created it.
Just
Special.
created it, brand new, just like Sama and like everything else. We're making new things here right now. So there we go. Thank you for putting that up.
Yeah, it's funny
Magic what you can do. It's magic we can do. So I've heard that song before. It's really lovely. I can see in a video you love playing it. What is it about that song that makes your eyes go into that place?
Well, the song has again involves Chava Alberstein. The story
One
is,
day we'll have Hava.
yeah. I wish, I don't think she's traveling outside of Israel anymore.
What
but
does it matter? We could do it.
yeah, that's true. That's actually really true. No one's traveling anywhere, so yeah. Actually, it's sort of a way to get her out, to share with the rest of the world. So the Klezmatics in the 90s, through one way or another, were approached by Chava to collaborate with her on a recording of Yiddish songs that she set to poems by writers who had ended up in Israel, most of whom were quite elderly. Some of them have since passed away, and she had made a documentary about them called "Too Early to Be Quiet, Too Late to Sing," And uh, one of uh, one of the writers was named Zisha Landau, and he wrote this poem. And when she sent us the cassette of the songs with her playing guitar and singing, this was the first song on the cassette, and I thought, oh great, this is like the song from this project. And then, as it turned out, it didn't end up on the recording for various reasons, but I've always really loved this song, and so I've been singing it and teaching it. And when the Klezmatics did our last recording, I said, you know what? We should record this song. And if we don't, I'm going to do it with someone else because this song deserves to be out in the world. And so we did. And, now it's, pleasure to be able to do it with these two. And it's an interesting song because one tends, when you hear a song that's sad, that is about death, people's minds immediately go to, oh, it's a Holocaust song. But in the case of this song, the words are, it's in the form of a riddle song, which is very common in Israeli folk songs for sure. Who is it that guides the boats that are sailing on the sea? God guides the boats that sail on the sea. Who is it that sends the gentle breezes that blow in the evening? God sends the breezes. Then it starts to get a little bit heavy and says, who is it that plays with the children and takes some of them with him? God's the one who plays with the children and takes some of them with him. And what are those voices that we hear around us and all the time? And it says that it's the voices of the children who have gone with God. So in terms of songs about spirituality and belief, this song fits right in, but it fits in other places, kind of other places too. So it's just a kind of a lovely and in its way heartbreaking song. And has that little bit with no words, which is one of the nice things about a lot of Yiddish songs, is that there's a tradition of building that into a song, that a lot of people in the contemporary Yiddish song world have taken a hold of as a device to get your audience to sing along with you. So that has some of that too.
I remember you took me to Golden Fest, which is an amazing festival of Yiddish and klezmer music in Brooklyn. And I remembered a few things, but one was that there was this like huge call and response. There was a lot of space for musicians to an audience to interact. I also remember that hilarious sign is like, "Please no jamming," for in the musicians' room, which is like ideal. I could imagine that you have so many bands like, "Hey, let's jam," and one day we will all jam in one form or another. Um, Guys, thank you so much for that song. Thank you for sharing this. I wanted to also bring up a couple of other things that we were just discussing yesterday. There is a lot of political turmoil that's going on right now, obviously in the United States, but also worldwide. And one of the things, as I started digging into Yiddish music and then Sephardic music, and just the range of musical experiences and the range of identities around this music and this culture, it's mind-boggling. Everything from Ethiopia to Yemen to Algeria, through the whole Sephardic and Ashkenazi tradition, we're dealing with a lot of uh, uh, politics right now on identity and where you are and how you are known. We know we have a whole focus on, gratefully, on BIPOC voices, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color. And then these conversations fall really an interesting place where you have somebody who was born in Morocco, who is Sephardic Jew, or in Iran, and all in that space. How do you guys navigate this place right now, where people are um, where you're trying to let voices be heard, and yet at the same time there is this process of, we talked about this a little bit, like not exactly assimilation, but when you move to a new country and it's your adopted home, the pressure to become of that country is so strong. Yiddish music, Yiddish culture has allowed people to hold on to that, but now in this new world and where it could be going, what are your thoughts on this, and well, how do you see it evolving? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And you can speak freely, and if you don't want to talk about it, if it's too raw right now, you can also, like, I'm going to shelve that for a couple of months and maybe address that in the
No, I think we're
future.
just figuring out who's going to go first. Lorin, you have seniority.
I just spoke, Craig.
Well, okay, I guess it's me then. Do you want it? No? Okay. So, I mean, I think, well, I don't know. I have a perspective being a nice South African born Jewish boy who grew up in Seattle, living in Germany. And there's a lot of things. I mean, I think first of all, yeah, absolutely. It's great, empowering, beautiful, important, necessary, like to see this sort of moment developing that's been, coming of just us all sort of learning how to make space. I think there's so many specific things like, Black Lives Matter. Like we just, need to keep saying that. And like, especially, whatever in America, but here in Germany, everywhere, like there's really specific things about that whole thing about indigenous people. But I think there's also a bigger thing about making space, that's something that I feel like I've had to learn over and over again and keep learning, growing up as a man or whatever in the West. I guess no real whatever, but it's like you don't really get taught how to do that, and then you sort of like go into all these social things as a musician, and you think, oh, like I'm a musician, like we have this thing, we jam, we like it's democracy, and we listen. It's like, yeah, but actually most of us, like especially men, like we really don't develop those skills, and we don't make space, and we really sort of hurt and detract from the overall scene and from people around us when we don't actually work on those skills. But what I really wanted to get to was actually just for me, I think like I started out playing classical and jazz, went to Garfield High School there in Seattle, and like I listened to your show actually, and like got hip to a lot of stuff from around the world, and was like, oh, I'm going to like learn all this different folk music from all over and then make something cool and fusiony with all of it. And like eventually kind of after studying in university and whatnot, I was just like, I feel like I'm just being a musical colonialist and like trying to take the best of all these things and bring them to my thing, which is going to be really cool. And there's nothing wrong with world music and mixing stuff. It's great. I'm not, but for me, it felt like I don't actually understand how traditional culture works. I'm just like looking at it from my, anthropology class and then trying to make something out of it. And if I want to do this well, to understand any culture, I have to understand at least one culture. And so what I did was I got really into American old time music actually, and spent a lot of time down in Appalachia and learning from some great mentors of mine. But then eventually I felt like this thing which we've talked about a little bit, where it's like, as a Jewish person or as any person really in America, you have this option to sort of join mainstream white whatever society. But the way that you do that is by letting go of your accent, by letting go of your language, of your stories, of your dietary restrictions, of everything. And then you end up being like, oh, that's like, okay, I made it, I'm white and I can pass, but like you end up in that same sort of cultural vacuum that everybody's in, and it's sort of like, we just have whatever corporate stuff we're fed, or whatever alternative stuff we're fed, or whatever it is. So eventually it was sort of like, well, what about my people's music? And so that's what the last few years have been about more for me, like just digging into some of these things that my grandparents, would have listened to, perhaps. Although, whatever, that's a long story.
No, that's perfect, because to me it's and it's a difficult subject to approach, because we're living in history right now, and we're trying to see where it goes. But it's always been for me is to amplify voices, and also to give a sense of identity to these places. Like for us within the culture of the stuff that I do, it's like it's not music of Africa. It's not music of the Jews. It's like, what are we talking about here? Because there is so much range there. And I want to have a like an intellectual honesty about it. Like, it's like there were, there's music from Spain, from the Moors. There's music from Algeria, music of Iran. All of this is considered to be Jewish music. And I'm not a scholar or anything like that. I just love it. I find it very interesting. And now we're finding this also in the context of, there is no such thing as African music. It's like music of Nigeria, of Senegal, of Tanzania, and different tribes in there. And I just feel like right now there's an interesting time where everything is shifting, and there's an opportunity for artists such as yourself that have done the work, that have actually gone in and like, you're not like dabblers. You're actually finding these songs that speak to the time that we're in, and also are able to share them with a sense of like of scholarship, or a sense of like sitting at the feet of these people and learning from them, so that it can continue to grow, so it can continue to be shared. You guys know what I mean?
Right.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah,
So
and I'm sorry, I'll try to finish my thought because I got on a bit of a thing there, but just I think part of it is that like if you want to show up and actually be yourself, and that's how you can honor somebody else, is if you can actually show them yourself. And if you kind of just go and you're like, I'm just trying to make space for you, and like I'm doing that to the point where I don't exist, it's like that's not like a full interaction. And it's like part of the way that you really can honor somebody is by giving from them as well as receiving. And to do that, you have to be connected to who you are and what you are. So that's
yeah.
I think kind of where some of my thought is. It's like at the same time as we do everything else and we study all the other cultures, let's also make sure we understand our own.
Yeah.
And it's a really great point that you made about very often people try to put everything, and people work so hard on creating categories and trying to put everything in a box with like one title. So when you go, this is all Jewish music or Jewish culture, or there's so much variety that I don't even I can't say that all of the Jewish culture is my culture. More, I can say that most of the world of Jewish culture is not part of my culture, is not part of my world. And to me, it's important to say that this is why we're doing Yiddish part, because like we're gonna, what Craig says, go deep and connect to it instead of just touching a little bit of all these things without being respectful to what each of these traditions is.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe, especially coming from like, I think all of us have multiple identities, and it's important to not try to be just this one thing and create a persona. All of us have things. I grew up in Latvia. My first language is Russian. I'm Jewish. I live in Berlin. How does all of that connect in my world, and how does all of that influence my everyday is very different from Craig's experience of living in Berlin, even though we both come from Jewish Ashkenazi background, but from different sides of the world. And even
Mm-hmm.
living in the same city, we have different experiences.
Even in the same apartment, sometimes we have different experiences.
Definitely.
No, I think that's awesome, and I think this is one of those times in history where it's not the time to suppress those. It's a time to have people's voices be heard, and to do the work on yourself, and to listen to people, listen to yourself. It just feels like a very interesting historical time for that, and especially in a context as musicians, you are able to help people through that, not through lecture, but to actually this thing that happens with music where you suddenly take people someplace. Lorin, your thoughts, or you could just go, yeah, and then
Uh-huh. Um, I think that I certainly felt compelled to focus on one thing, which was what what I do now. Well, I mean, I sort of, with, to focus on Yiddish music and klezmer and on Yiddish song, and the sort of tangents that surround it, because I was doing a bit like Craig. I was doing a bit of this and that, and I sort of found like, well, I'm not doing any of it in a way that's necessarily doing the music any good, and not feeling um, an individual connection to it. So for me, I needed to sort of take a step back and uh, just try and focus on that, because there's so much good music out there, and but all of it isn't necessarily mine, and this music is mine, and when I finally moved to New York after growing up in Los Angeles, and I understood all this all these things that I had grown up hearing and seeing, and the linguistic stuff, and the singing that I would hear these old men in synagogue, this way that they sang, and I sort of finally understood how it was all connected, and that was a very important development for me. Um, and one of the nice things about the Jewish world is that the reason that we're still around, I think, is partially because we're given the permission to be Jewish the way we want to be.
Hmm.
And it's why you can have so many different kinds of Jewish, and they're all personal and valid, and something that we need to embrace, and that's why we're all able to do all these different kinds of things. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing. I know it's not an easy subject, and I'm glad we were able to talk about it, because I think it's the time that we're in, and
It's
it's a
always the
time for
time,
all
and
of
it's
us.
especially the time, right?
Yeah. Let's hear another song, and then we'll say goodbye and let people know what else is going on. This is Sama, Seattle Circuit Music and Art with STG, with the amazing brand new band formed by Lorin Sklamberg and Sasha Lurje and Craig Judelman. I love that. That is perfect. My eyes got wet. It was so perfect. The Sklamberg Lorin Judelman trio.
I haven't seen it. I have only heard it. I didn't see it before. I love the end. No,
We're exhausted.
there's so much joy in those kinds of songs,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we needed. Perfect. All of you, thank you so, so much. This is a brand new ensemble, the Sklamberg Lurje Judelman Trio. We have links to their brand new Facebook page. We will do this again. Thank you for, it's 3 a.m. in Berlin. It is
5 a.m.
5
5 a.m. in Berlin. You're
Yeah.
troopers,
It's
true
very light
musicians,
here.
Yeah.
true
It's,
musicians. And it
the
is
sun's just
now like 11
Yeah.
in New York, but the music lives on, and it's needed now more than ever, obviously. Thanks for being here. This is Sama, Seattle Circuit Music and Art. Next week we've got the Warsaw Trio Sutari. A little later on we have Kira Nachlawalia. Juju Sounds is going to be on a little bit later. Mariam Bin Ammar from Tunisia, now living in Vancouver, British Columbia. Carmen Rizzo and others. We're just going to continue growing this. Go to seattlecircuitmusic.com, sign up for the newsletter, and we'll send you more information. Promise we will not be spamming you at all. And once again, we're just starting. This is an interesting time for all of us. And a huge shout out to, I got to speak this right now. This is to Craig. I'm watching you from Spain. This is from Christine. She was your mom's pen friend from France and met you when you were a very little boy. It was nice to see you. There it is, right there. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been hearing about her for years and years.
And
Oh,
Brian and Emily and David out of Toronto, thank you for tuning in,
Yeah.
checking out the live stream. This will be available on their brand new Facebook page. We're going to be sending it to everybody. The conversation is great. You guys are awesome. We could talk for hours and hours.
Thank
And
you,
one day
Derek.
we will. One day we will. Thanks everybody for doing this, and
Yeah,
get
thank
some
you.
sleep, and we will see you again soon. Bye.
Chaim.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm